She was a bright, athletic young woman, full of promise and kindness, a college student with her entire future ahead of her. On an ordinary July evening, she set out for her daily jog through her quiet Iowa neighborhood. It was a route she had taken countless times before. But on this night she never came home. At first, it seemed like a simple disappearance. Perhaps she had stayed with a friend or taken a spontaneous trip. But as hours turned into days and days into weeks, the search for Molly Tibbetts gripped the nation. Volunteers scoured fields, rivers, and dirt roads. Her face appeared on missing posters across the Midwest, and headlines blared with her name. What no one could have predicted was the grim truth investigators would eventually uncover. A chance encounter, a chilling admission, and one man's dark obsession led to a discovery that would horrify a community and devastate a family. This is the story of Molly Tibbetts, a young woman whose life was stolen in an instant, and whose case would spark outrage, heartbreak, and nationwide debate. Molly Cecilia Tibbetts was born on May 8, 1998, in San Francisco, California, but spent most of her childhood in Brooklyn, Iowa, a small, close-knit town of just over 1,500 people. Known for its cornfields, dirt roads, and quiet charm, Brooklyn was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where kids played outside without fear, and where neighbors looked after one another. From a young age, Molly stood out. She had a radiant smile and a warmth that made people feel comfortable in her presence. Teachers recalled her as a dedicated student who always went out of her way to help others. Friends described her as witty, compassionate, and determined. She wasn't just popular, she was genuinely loved. In high school, Molly developed a passion for running. Cross-country became more than a sport for her. It was an outlet, a place where she found freedom and peace. She was disciplined, lacing up her shoes almost every day, no matter the weather. Running gave her a sense of control, and it became part of her identity. But Molly wasn't defined by athletics alone. She had a love for literature and writing. She was a student at the University of Iowa, majoring in psychology, with dreams of one day helping children. Her professors admired her dedication, and her classmates respected her kindness. Outside of school, Molly had a strong bond with her family and her boyfriend, Dalton Jack. She split her time between staying at Dalton's house and her mother's, always keeping in touch through text messages and Snapchat. In fact, Molly was known for her consistent communication. She never went more than a few hours without sending a message to loved ones. She had dreams of traveling, of working with children, and of making a positive mark on the world. To those who knew her best, Molly wasn't just another small-town girl. She was a force of light, the kind of person whose laughter filled a room, whose encouragement pushed her teammates further, and whose compassion left an imprint on everyone she met. It was this vibrant life, full of promise and potential, that made her sudden disappearance all the more devastating. July 18, 2018, began like any other summer day for Molly. She had been staying at her boyfriend Dalton's home while he was out of town for work. Earlier in the day, she attended her job at a local daycare, where she was loved by the children she cared for. By evening, she was back in Brooklyn, planning a relaxing night of studying and catching up on homework. Around 7:30 p.m., Molly put on her running shoes and set out for her usual jog. It was a familiar route, winding through quiet residential streets and past cornfields that lined the outskirts of town. Neighbors later recalled seeing her, earbuds in, ponytail swinging, running with her usual determination. At 8 p.m., she sent her boyfriend a Snapchat photo. That would be the last communication anyone ever received from her. By 10 p.m., when she hadn't checked in with her family or responded to messages, her loved ones began to worry. Molly was responsible and reliable. It was completely out of character for her to vanish without explanation. The following morning, when she still hadn't shown up for work at the daycare, alarms went off, calls were made, messages went unanswered, and soon the entire community realized something was terribly wrong. When Molly was reported missing on July 19th, the response was immediate. Police, family, and community members sprang into action. Within days, hundreds of volunteers joined search parties, combing through fields, barns, rivers, and back roads. Helicopters hovered above, and search dogs were brought in to track her scent. Her disappearance became national news. Posters bearing her face appeared across Iowa and beyond. Vigils were held, where friends and strangers alike prayed for her safe return. Social media exploded with campaigns under the hashtag #FindingMolly, as people across the country followed updates. But despite the massive search effort, days turned into weeks, and no trace of Molly was found. No clothing, no personal belongings, no clear leads. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Then came a chilling break. Investigators began reviewing security camera footage from the small town. On one clip, a black Chevy Malibu was spotted driving back and forth near Molly's jogging route around the time she disappeared. The vehicle's behavior stood out. It wasn't random. Someone had been circling, watching. This discovery would soon lead police down a dark and unsettling path. The black Chevy Malibu became the focus of the investigation. Detectives painstakingly tracked the vehicle, eventually linking it to a man named Christian Bahena Rivera, a 24-year-old farm worker living in nearby Poweshiek County. Rivera had lived in the area for several years, working at a dairy farm, and was described by acquaintances as quiet, reserved, and polite. On August 20, 2018, more than a month after Molly vanished, investigators brought Rivera in for questioning. What unfolded in that interrogation room would change everything. At first, Rivera denied any involvement. He claimed he didn't know Molly and hadn't seen her that night. But as detectives pressed him, evidence mounted. Surveillance footage clearly showed his car circling the block as Molly ran. Finally, confronted with the video, Rivera admitted he had seen her. He told investigators he followed Molly as she jogged. According to Rivera, he pulled his car alongside her and ran alongside her for a short distance. He claimed she threatened to call the police, and he blacked out. When he came to, he said Molly was in the trunk of his car. What Rivera described next was haunting. He claimed he drove to a remote cornfield outside town, pulled Molly's body from the trunk, and covered her with corn stalks. Then he simply left her there. The following day, guided by Rivera's directions, investigators made the grim discovery. Molly's body was found in the cornfield, hidden among rows of crops just outside Brooklyn. She had been brutally stabbed multiple times. The confirmation devastated the community. The search that had inspired hope for weeks ended in heartbreak. Vigils turned to memorials. Posters that once asked for her safe return became tributes to her memory. But while the community grieved, investigators worked to build their case. Forensic evidence linked Rivera directly to the crime. DNA testing confirmed blood found in his trunk belonged to Molly. Her Fitbit and phone data also matched the timeline of her disappearance, further tightening the case against him. Rivera's arrest and confession brought both relief and fury. Relief that Molly's family finally had answers. Fury that such a senseless act had taken her life. Christian Bahena Rivera became the sole suspect in the murder of Molly Tibbetts. His confession, paired with surveillance footage and DNA evidence, left little doubt about his involvement. During interrogations, Rivera showed little emotion. He described the events calmly, insisting he blacked out and didn't remember stabbing her. This explanation rang hollow to investigators. The brutality of the crime was undeniable. Prosecutors argued that Rivera had stalked Molly, driven by obsession or impulse, and when confronted, he chose violence. The breakthrough in the case, the discovery of his car on surveillance video, had been the key. Without it, Molly's fate might have remained a mystery. Rivera's trial began in May 2021. The courtroom was packed with reporters, family members, and community members seeking justice for Molly. The prosecution presented a compelling case. Surveillance footage, DNA evidence, Rivera's own confession. The defense attempted to cast doubt, suggesting Rivera had been pressured into confessing. They even introduced alternative theories involving other men. But the evidence was overwhelming. On May 28, 2021, after just 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict for first-degree murder. In August, Rivera was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the verdict was read, Molly's family wept. Justice had been served, but nothing could fill the void left by her absence. Molly Tibbetts' murder left a permanent scar on the small town of Brooklyn, but her memory continues to inspire change. A scholarship was established in her name, honoring her passion for helping others. Her story also sparked national conversations about safety, immigration, and justice. For her family, Molly's legacy is not defined by her death, but by the kindness, laughter, and love she gave during her life. Her father once said, "Molly was nobody's victim. She was our hero." Molly Tibbetts' case reminds us how quickly life can change, and how darkness can invade even the most peaceful of places. But it also reminds us of the power of community, resilience, and remembrance. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true crime stories told with care and respect. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant,